Well, thank you very much. That's a very much more disciplined Gretchen Amspinnrade than I would normally expect to find in a master class, and it must be the skill of your coach and teacher that accounts for it, because a lot of the impetus of the song begins in the piano. And there were very many good things. Sometimes on the higher notes, slightly flat. Just beware. Not in the high A, but for example, meine Ruhe ist in mein Herz nimmer sometimes. But actually, very well schooled, and there's only really one passage that I want to actually talk about, apart from the fact that, in my opinion, it's ever so slightly fast for dotted crotchet to 72. To my mind, that's actually a slightly faster tempo than 72. And remember that Schubert wrote these metronome marks himself for his first songs. Only in about the first 7 or 8 opus numbers are there metronome marks. In most Schubert songs, there are not metronome marks, but in Earl King, a crotchet equals 152 shows us da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, not da-da-da-da-da-da like some silly people do.
But still,
it's quite fast, but it's not. So that actually is very useful because it gives us a parameter of what schnell was in Schubert's mind. And then we get various steps. Under schnell is geschwind or sehr geschwind. And then underneath that, we get various mäßig or mäßig geschwind, or it's a whole step ladder of tempi. And the one thing that we should really hear slightly more in this tempo is the dreariness of Gretchen's work. What do you think she's doing? You know, she actually has to do this to make a living. Yeah, making yarn. In another Goethe poem which Schubert set to music called Die Spinnerin, which is a story of a girl who's seduced and made pregnant, Gretchen was also seduced and made pregnant, but she's not pregnant at this stage. She's simply met Faust in the street, and then in the garden house, he's managed to get her alone to separate her from her friend Martha, and kisses her. So this is not about a woman who's had a sexual experience, it's about a woman who will have a sexual experience with Faust, will have his baby, will be pregnant with his baby, will kill the baby, will be condemned to death. It's the most terrifying story of a very righteous girl who is seduced by someone with the help of Mephistopheles. So it's not entirely her fault, of course, because she has these forces ranged against her. That Zauberfluss, which Schubert so wonderfully sets with the chromatic scale, Zauberfluss, it's a result of magic speech, which in fact, he is really an old man, as you know, turned in with the help of the devil to a young man. And he lusts after Gretchen because she is innocent, because she's beautiful, because normally a man would not have a chance at getting to her because she's been beautifully brought up. But thanks to Faust's poisonous influence, she overdoses her mother with sleeping pills and kills her. And her brother Valentin is killed in a duel by Faust. Killed in a duet, that's more operatic. So consequently, you are having to get back to work, because basically you are paid by how much flax and yarn you make. This is before factories were erected. You understand? 30 years later, they would begin to put women together in factories, and they all spin together. This is what we get in Flying Dutchman with the spinning chorus, where the women are sitting together spinning. But then, in this stage, it's everybody comes to a central man and he says, how much flax have you woven? And he weighs it, and he pays. So this is how she makes money. So, if I can just demonstrate. This is a little bit, we are going to get faster, more and more fast towards the end. But we have to allow some sense of development. So nicht zu geschwind. I like very much your non-legato. I like the very much the fact that you don't overpedal it. And I like the fact that we hear the machinery going, you know? And this we have to do. But there has to be a slight feeling of, do you see how different it is if we... It's not, she's too perky. She's actually, it's only a tiny thing. As you are a conductor, you know that a tiny amount of tempo can make a world of change in terms of atmosphere, right? So just come with me for a minute. That is how one should start. If one begins too much like that, one's got nowhere to go. And one has to start like that. All right, so just let me show you. I liked very much your decision to go sein hoher Gang, sein edle Gestalt, suddenly pedal. Very nice. I like this detail very much. When she starts to talk about what he looks like, sein hoher Gang, sein edle Gestalt, sein wundes Lächeln, seine Augesgewalt. But I think the crescendo here was too much, because there is a moment when he touches her. His hand goes on her. And it's this moment where in the only piece there's a forzato here. And I didn't hear that as a particularly, and only then the accelerando. You were already doing a feeling of accelerando here. Yeah, so if you do it here, it's so much more effective. Just go from sein hoher Gang.
Sein hoher Gang, sein edle Gestalt, seines Mundes Lächeln, seiner Augen Gewalt, und seine Rede,
performance wasn't special because basically it was all getting faster. Remember, the Augengewalt, this is looking at him. The speech, the Rede, Zauberfluss, that's only him speaking. Then suddenly it becomes sexual. Sein Händedruck und ach, sein Kuss. The accelerando continues through Händedruck and ach. Yeah, the accelerando continues, I think, until here. So go from ah. He takes you and you're not prepared for it.
Okay, yes.
It's also interesting that what's terrible for this girl is that she has to admit that having always imagined that what would be a nice situation with a man that she likes and marries and children, she finds herself with this evil connection of Faust, who's a magician. She finds that she has sexual feelings that are inappropriate. Mein Busen drängt sich nach ihm hin. That was originally mein Schoß in Schubert, in Goethe. My womb longs for him. And this is horrifying to her because it goes against every way she's been brought up. She's not a little ha. She is absolutely not. And so it's this conflict between, and that incredible moment where she says, und küssen ihn so wie ich wollt. There's a wonderful Gustav Gründgens, who was one of the great actors before the war. He does a performance of Faust with a famous Jewish actress taking the part of Gretchen called Keta Gold. Keta Gold. And her performance of this, just spoken, is heard to be believed. Meine Busen drängt sich nach ihm und dürftig fassen und halten ihn und küssen ihn, so wie ich wollte. Suddenly, she's got this unusually developed sexual desire. Where? What horrible influence has made her be like this? It's because she's in the middle of this, being trapped, you see. So you have to actually just do the sein Händedruck after I go boom.
Okay. Sein Händedruck und ach, sein Kuss.
This is traditional.
Meine Ruhe ist hin, mein Herz ist schwer. Ich finde sie nimmer und nimmer mehr. Mein Busen drängt sich nach ihm hin, ach, durch die Fasten und durch die Nähe.
in the bar. Da, 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 da. And up to then, it's how you manage the accelerando is between the two players. I think good Küssen in so wie ich wollte. You can be certain that isn't too slow, because we really have to whip up the tempo. Did that feel different at the end? So that you really, in a way, the A's are easier like that if you've got that behind you. It pushes you towards them. But the important thing about this piece, generally, is the privacy of it and the way that she has to do her living. And then, and many people have written essays on this, the wheel moves faster as she thinks of him. I have to be very indelicate and say that the wheel, and Schubert would have been aware of this, the wheel is rather near certain parts of the anatomy, and excitement is associated with the wheel and the thinking of it. And the sense of stimulation, I mean, this is a complicated matter. I don't want to draw pictures, but I want to actually say, that part of the reason, and one of the wonders that a 17-year-old boy could write a song with this sophistication, 17 years old, and write such a piece of drama, such a piece of unbelievable depth, such a piece of female psychology, but also something at 17 that understands sexual frustration, fulfillment, the loneliness of a sexual experience on one's own, and coming down afterwards, after the Zeitgeist, the imagination of it. I mean, all of this is part of the piece. It's a raw piece, and it's a piece that's, funnily enough, a lot more raw than almost any other Schubert lied. I don't think he ever finds a place in his Lieder again for these type of high A's that have this particular type of operatic demand. And they're not easy high A's. That's one of the reasons why it helps a little bit. To actually have that last page at that tempo, but not the rest of the song. The rest of the song needs to that is too fast. But just go back to look at the metronome marking and see, and just see the implication. Let's just start it again, and I'll stop you this time.
Meine Ruhe ist hin, mein Herz ist schwer. Ich finde sie nimmer und nimmer mehr.
Remind you of is that the opening, it's much, from both of you, it's a bit loud. Can you actually making it as if you're singing to yourself? And then Die ganze Welt ist mir vergelt, I think, is the first time when we actually get, well, there's a sudden mezzo forte. Is there a mezzo forte or mezzo forte there? Yeah, die ganze Welt ist mir vergelt. It's gall. It's bitter. One of the things is that she is in love with Faust. And you think that, what's wrong? What's wrong? She's a pretty girl and she meets a handsome man and he says, "You're beautiful," and he kisses her and she goes back to her work. And you would think that she would go, "Oh my God, he's gorgeous." But Schubert knows that this is going to end badly. He knows that she is in the middle of a terrifying situation. That's why it's in the minor key. That's why there is a sense of doom. It's like even she knows something isn't right. I mean, normally, boy meets girl is a source of joy. He's handsome, Heinrich, his name is, and she's Gretchen, and he says, you're wonderful, and he kisses her, and it's an unbelievably powerful kiss. Normally you would actually go, but she is, and the interesting thing about Gretchen is right throughout her story, even when Valentine is killed and when the mother is killed, she knows that her life is going wrong. Even here, she sort of knows that her life is going wrong, but she is obsessed with this man and his hohe Gang and all the rest of it. Start it again. It needs to be more intimate at the beginning.
Meine Ruhe ist hin, mein Herz ist schwer. Ich finde sie nimmer und nimmermehr. Ach, lieb nicht hab, ist mir das Grab, die ganze Welt ist mir vergällt. Mein armer Kopf ist mir verrückt, mein armer Sinn ist mir zerstückt. Meine Ruhe ist hin, mein Herz ist schwer. Ich finde sie nimmer und nimmermehr. Nach ihm nur schau ich zum Fenster hinaus, nach ihm nur geh ich aus die Maus. Sein hoher Gang, sein edle Gestalt, seines Mundes Lächeln, seiner Augen Gewalt und seine Rede Zauberfluss, sein Händedruck und auch sein Kuss. Meine Ruhe ist hin, mein Herz ist schwer. Ich finde sie nimmer und nimmermehr. Mein Busen drängt sich nach ihm hin, ach darf die fassen und halten ihn und küssen ihn, so wie Gott an seiner Küssen vergehen hat. O könnt ihr küssen, so wie Gott an seiner Küssen vergehen sollt, an seiner Küssen vergehen sollt. Meine Ruhe ist hin, mein Herz ist schwer.
We have a saying in English which is to keep your powder dry which is related to the old use of guns, which means reserve your gun power for later when it's needed. Build in the song from slower, calmer beginnings so that you have a means of getting to the end with more drama. If you give us all the drama on the first page and all the speed on the first page, it's a temptation. By the time you got to Wagang, you were already faster than the tempo that you started. So you were started da 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 da, but Wagang was not da 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 da. It was da little little little. It was already in the faster tempo. I think that you need to be in the same da da dee da dee da da dee. Yes, not so that it's stuck, but the point is that it's all dreaming and it's all idealistic. And the big difference between Gang and Gestalt und Rede, Zauberfluss, and then suddenly physical. That's what the difference is. And if one's too loud and too brash.
It went too loud in it.
Yeah, yeah. And then basically, then the next bit being louder still drives the song out of the frame of a lied into something too expressionistic for Schubert. You've got to keep the control in the first part. So the forte that we had, the second forte, is still contained and it isn't too brutal. We can't have it too brutal. But in terms of shape, it's very, very much better. And I think you just have to, this is a song for a lifetime. It's brilliant 17-year-old song, but it's not easy for the voice. And maybe another singer, if he'd ever had a singer who sang that. I don't know if you know that in Erlkönig, Johann Michael Vogel, who was the first singer who sang it, asked Schubert for an extra bar to recover. And it was put in. I think one more bar before Meine Ruhe ist hin would be excellent. Do you know what I mean at the end? You could just have a little, but it comes so quickly after. Vergehen soll. You could do with a little, and you know, if somebody had said that to Schubert at the time, he probably would have included it. It's quite easy to add another bar, but we can't do that now because he's dead, and we can't ask him. But thank you very much.